I remember walking around on the field as you used to do back in the day, just getting a sense of the game before you went in to get changed, and it was just a sea of blue and gold, and you just going, yeah, this is awesome.
What was the move to Southland? Why did you decide to move to Southland?
Now, did I decide? That was a result of professional sport, and you would ask Sam and he would tell me I was too quick to offer advice, and I would be probably err on the side of critical advice first. Why did you do that? Why didn't you do this? Rather than first you go, hey, great game. Or resilience, certainly resonates with me because I had potentially 2 or 3 career-ending injuries. I broke my leg 2 days out from playing the Springboks. I was named to play starting lock against the Springboks in 1995 or whatever it was. And that devastated me. I was out of rugby for a whole 12 months.
Welcome along to the second edition of the Mindset Podcast powered by World Fitness. Today's guest is a former Highlander, Otago and Southland Stags player, Brendon Timmins. Brendon played lock for all 3 teams and started his rugby career with Otago back in 1992. He would then go on and represent Otago until 1999, clinching the NPC title against Waikato at the Brook in 1998. Brendon would shift south to the mighty Southland Stags in 2000 before finishing up his career in 2002. He represented the Highlanders from 1996 to 2002. He is now a facilitator and coach at Richard Joseph here in Dunedin and is watching his son Sam on his own professional sporting career with the Otago Nuggets and Sydney Kings in basketball. Brendon, great to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Colin.
First off, Phil, you'll know this a bit more, is your nickname Cheese. What's the go with that?
Well, I got it the very first day I was at Otago University. I came down in 89 as a fresher, and I was in the hall, which was Cumberland House at the time. It's now Cumberland College, but it was the very first year of Cumberland Hall, and you're down there and you're meeting everyone, and I come in and they go, well, where are you from? Because they're all Aucklanders and that, and I'm going, well, I'm from Woodville. They go, where's Woodville? And I said, well, it's in the Tararua district. Sort of the top of the Wairarapa, Tararua area. Oh, like the cheese ads on TV. Because that was, over that summer, Tararua Dairy Products was doing a big push on, in the TV, cheese. If you drank Tararua milk, everything was big. So the cows were big. You were shooting snars with shotguns out the kitchen window, and the baby was drinking Tararua milk, doing weights in the high chair, and I was the biggest guy in the hostel. So, like the cheese ads, cheese. And from there.
Do you remember that ad, Phil?
Parts of it.
He's
going back away though.
He's a bit younger than me.
Hey, I did touch on it earlier around your professional career and the accolades that you did get. I just want to touch on that team in 1998 first. Probably 25 years ago, I just actually had something on Facebook just recently come up of the final against Waikato. You're running out right behind Captain Tane Randall in front of 40,000 people at Carrisbrook. I just want to go through that team. That starting 15 was Hoft, Oliver, Muse, you and Blakey, Cronfeld, Randall and Mucker, Callahar, Brown, Leslie, Parkinson, Ropati, Laney and Wilson. Now, in that 15, there's about 7 or 8 of them that were or had been All Blacks or were about to become All Blacks. What was it like in that environment in 1998 when you were in this team that had a little bit of pressure because you'd been into the finals a couple of times years prior and going out there in front of 40,000 people and taking on Waikato? What was the mentality like of that dressing room?
It was one of excitement. We weren't nervous. We had created such momentum from the start of the season through to the end of the season that, we had complete belief in what we were about and what we're doing. We were led by an absolute legend in Tony Gilbert as our coach. And his skill set to manage people was amazing, and to instill confidence into people was awesome. And I can't fully recall the results leading into the playoffs, but we were putting 80 points around Wellington, Northland back to back. We went up to North Harbour, who were playing really well, and we put them to the sword. And then we came down and had our home semi against Taranaki, and we put 50 against them. I think we just the momentum was such. And then I remember walking around on the field as you used to do back in the day, just getting a sense of the game before you went in to get changed. And it was just a sea of blue and gold. And you just going, yeah, this is awesome. You know, it's good fun.
Yeah, because I did have a look at that final and the video highlight package and whatnot. And, you know, you had Southern Man playing and you had, you know, all blue and gold, a sea of blue and gold. You know, at the time, did you think that you guys had something special? And as you said, like you were putting in, I think I was looking at it, you were putting in around about 400 points in the regular season. You'd put on against, you had about 170 odds. So at the time, did you guys know that you had something special? And
we knew it was great fun. We were certainly enjoying ourselves, and we were a very tight unit. We did a lot of things together off the field as well. But back in the day, it was still pretty early doors professional. So we were still really enjoying each other's company. And, you know, so going into it, did we think then that there was something special? I just think we were young fellas caught up in the moment and just enjoying ourselves. I mean, you look back now and those things like you talk about with the Facebook feeds and that, and you look back and you go, wow, yeah. No, that was a pretty cool era. And it was a culmination of through the 90s, though. You know, like, we wouldn't have had the players we had in 98 if the team or the Otago environment hadn't been as successful through late 80s into the 90s and through to there, because it wouldn't have attracted the players to the environment. Yeah, and as you've alluded to, we had some serious quality in that 15. I mean, all bar John Blakey and I ended up being international players of one team or another. And John and I both represented New Zealand A. So we were all, and we had 3 or 4 future All Blacks in the bench as well, with Carl Heyman and Tom Willis, and you know, even Andrew Hall was there, who went on to play amount. You know, Simon Mayling. You know, there was a lot of boogie in that team. Yeah.
did you touched on just before around the professional side, it was early doors for the professional game. Did that slightly change in the years later? Did you see a bit of a shift from players and what was going on?
I'm not fully versed on what it feels like these days, but you know, I likened it to when we were amateurs. We'd see each other Tuesday, Thursday, and then come together on the game in the weekend, and we looked forward to it because it was, I haven't seen you all day. You know, Phil, what did you get up to during the week? There was an excitement about it. Once it became professional, it became your job, and I'm talking more the ladder of my career, and then into obviously where it has evolved to now. You're around each other so much, you're almost looking for opportunities to get away from each other, to sort of find some outlet other than just rugby, because it can become all-consuming, and it's a game. You know, it's still your job, but it is a game, and you've got to, those things you really thrive in when you're enjoying yourself and you enjoy the mates around you. And one thing I'd have to say around the Highlander environment, and I think any environment, is that they strive to have that sort of cohesion. That social cohesion is so critical to a successful space, you know. And then you've got to have the capability on top of that.
Do you reckon that's an issue that the Highlanders are facing at the moment?
No, I think they do an incredibly good job with the social cohesion. So how everyone gets on with each other, and they really buy into the Southern man mentality that Jamie Joseph really installed when he first came back, from what I understand. And then you had the likes of Nuggie and Ben Smith and that really driving that environment. But then you've got to have the cattle to capitalise on that, and that task cohesion around the accuracy of the stuff you're doing on the field and that. And I think we're probably shy, in recent times, been a bit shy of the cattle. Not for the lack of want, just probably that's just my outside. I'm not on the inside anymore, but
of course.
Just an observation.
But I think it's good hearing from an ex-player who was obviously involved in that Otago environment, the Highlander environment. I want to get your thoughts just real quickly. I know Phil's got a whole bunch of questions as well, but your thoughts on the state of the game at the moment, particularly NPC. I don't know if you've watched much of it. I've watched a little bit of it this past season, but you know, noticing that the crowds are not as they were, obviously not 40,000 people in an NPC final. So I just wanted to hear your sort of take on where you think the game is right now and where you think they should sort of head.
Yeah, look, it makes me sad to see what sort of or lack of crowd is turning up these days. I managed to get to 3 games this season, and why they're not there, I think there's such a plethora of rugby nowadays, and there's such a plethora of sport these days. And I don't think the mindset is so steeped in rugby as it was back in the day. I remember we played an NPC season, it must have been in the mid-90s, it might have been 95 when we ended up going up, and I got injured in the last round robin game, but the one where we lost to Auckland with a controversial call by Colin Hawke. I've let it go, Colin, even though I wasn't playing. But we lost all 4 home games that season to crowds of 20 to 25,000 in regular season, not finals. So there has been a shift, certainly in rugby. Why? I'm not sure. But I just think part of it is professionalism means there's just so much of it now, because that's how you get your money for your sponsors. You've got to have the product out in the space. NPC is not what it was. It is definitely not what it was. It's now a feeder to the Super. Super is now what NPC was in the 90s. And that's a shift. Even Super players, you're struggling to get them. You don't get them in the club games anymore. So everything is getting, filtered down, and the product's never quite the same. I remember playing a super game, and then 2 days later playing for my club. It was the coach said, "Look, can you do it? We've got a couple of injuries. You're going to go away on holiday." I was going to come back a couple of days, and I'll play. And then I went away on holidays. You don't see that anymore these days. So, and I suppose even the generation before me, guys would play a test match the next day, they'll be playing for their club or their province. You just don't get that anymore. There's a real disconnect between those top quality players and the grassroots, and they're the ones that drag the supporters in. You'll get the diehards who will support the team regardless, but you're not seeing the product, as good as it was back in the day.
Do you think success has something to do with that? Like a successful team?
Fans, everyone loves success, right? You look at what up the road Canterbury are doing in their NPC, but they're still getting a smaller crowd to the NPC matches than what they would be hoping for. But definitely, it's been a few years since we've been successful as Otago. We're still floundering around in that sort of bottom half, which hurts from an old boy, but it's not from a lack of want or desire. It's just, again, I think it comes back to a little bit of lack of cattle. Rugby, professional rugby has changed the mindset of New Zealand players as well. And I ran into Roger Clark, the CEO of the Highlanders, and he said to me, "Mate, Cheese," he said, "look, guys don't want to necessarily be All Blacks anymore. They want to be professional players. So what they'll do is they'll build up a CV, and then they'll look offshore as soon as they can, because they've got to look after their family. They've got to look after themselves." So, cash talks. So that in itself is leading to a lesser pool of quality players to go and watch as well. You'll see players play well for a year or two, build up their CV, get a bit of interest, boom, I'm gone. And you can't blame them for it. That's a professional game.
Yeah, I guess it is. You do see that often now, that there are a lot of players that will be on the cusp of getting an All Black jersey, and they'll bugger off overseas and make the cash. Charles Piersell was one of them. He should have been an All Black for many years and decided to walk away from the game. Do you reckon money is a big thing into why they're not where they're sticking around and going overseas?
Well, Connor, would you stay and bash yourself up for Otago for maybe 30,000 or go and play in Japan for 150K?
I would take the money and run, wouldn't I?
And that's what they're doing,
No, it's a wee bit disappointing.
Mate, could we go back to what was the biggest highlight of the career as a rugby player for you personally?
Obviously, the obvious comes to mind is 98, and the culmination of the win. That was something special.
Because being a kid, being there, you have different, now that I'm a little bit more grown up and experienced a lot of sport all over the world, there are certain situations that you're in where you're like, there's no way this team will lose. or there's no way this team will win. There was no way Waikato was going to win that game. But it did take till about the 30th minute, I think it was, to sort of break. I think it was 3-3 until the 30th minute. Was that the highlight of your career?
Are you mentioning the try?
That huge 4 metre run that...
That 60-metre run, like fend, goose-stepped and tripped over myself and fell over the line. That was pretty cool. I remember feeling pretty stoked about that. I mean, I didn't score very many. I did get a hat trick once against Southland, playing number 8 for Otago. I'll just throw that in there. But well, that was special. But I've also got other pretty cool memories. Playing in New Zealand A against Samoa and Apia, and it was a really, again, a tight struggle, and I was on the bench and I came on, and within 5 minutes, I think just because I was fresh, everyone was in the heat getting sapped away. I caught a nice in ball from, it might have been Ronnie Clark, but then I just get the seas open and I gapped it, and bloody, crikey, Tuavoga pulled me down a couple of metres from the line. I thought, here I go, I'm in. But that run set a catalyst for us to go on and win quite comfortably. So that was quite a cool thing, that feeling of injection and creating something, which may not stick in many people's memories, but for me that was huge because I was able to impact the game. So that was a cool moment.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because it was the same in that 98 final. I was like, oh, this is actually really tight.
Yeah.
And then that try was that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
As soon as that happened, I was like, oh, it's ours. We've got it. And then, we got away with it.
Yeah, and
run away with it.
Yeah, it was always going to be tough because there was a lot of feeling out in that game, and we were playing into a stiff wind as well, I think, from memory. So we were having to grind to get our territory, and then they'd just bring it down. But we never felt like we were really battling. It just took the time to, as you say, wind them down, and then, got my try, and then all of a sudden, we get to half time, we've got a good cushion of, it might have been 10-3 or something, but then bang, 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 bang in the second half, it was just Buffer gets 2 or 3 and JL gets a nice one. Romy does off a Ruben pop, gets a great kick, gives it the old high kick, and the game was over. Yeah. But one other one that sits for my memory, you talk about memories, it was the semi-final in 99, we're over in Cape Town against the Stormers. And we'd flown all the way. We hadn't even come home. We'd lost to the Hurricanes in a dodgy decision on Athletic Park. We wake up the next morning that we have to go to South Africa. So we had friends and family packing our bags, and Ray Wright, the manager, picking up the gear and getting it onto the airport to meet us in Wellington to then fly direct to South Africa. And it was just... And we get on the field and it's just a sea of black and white, because I think that might have been the colours back then, I'm not sure, but it was just wow, this is why we play the game, and we smoked them. Yeah. The history says we lost the game with Crusaders the following week, but that semi-final was cool. That was great.
Was that hard, losing that final at Carrisbrook? Was that one of the lowest moments of your professional career?
I wouldn't say low, because we still made the final. It hurts, but I talked about in the pre-match of the 98 final, walking out to a sea of blue and gold and going, man, we're on. We walked out to a sea of red and black. It was like we got hijacked, and we're just going, what's going on here? Are we up in Christchurch? It was it was not the same vibe, and it was a back and forth, and, Afato sort of gave Jeff a bit of a show up, and and that'd probably be the one time in Jeff Wilson's life that he got smoked, ever. I've seen that guy do some pretty amazing things. I'm very glad he played with me and not against me. But, but even going into that last sort of 10, 15 minutes, we were banging them. We still were good enough to beat, but we just ran out of time. I guess most losers would say that we just ran out of time. But we weren't beaten up. But we should have won it. That was ours to win. We knew that we'd beaten them comfortably during the regular season.
Can you remember, walking to the sheds and what that atmosphere was like? Because I always find it interesting, seeing videos of like the Crusaders and the dressing room after they've just won the Super Rugby title and they're all cheering and stuff. And it's only this past year at the World Cup with the All Blacks that I've managed to see videos of them after they lose, especially Rugby World Cup final. You got Richie Mwanga, you got Aaron Smith talking to the camera, and I just was blown away that they're actually doing that after they've just lost the World Cup. I don't know if you remember what it felt like, but I can imagine it would have been very tough, and it would have been tough if someone just put a camera in your face and went, "Oh, well, how do you feel after the game?"
Yeah, you've always got those raw emotions of the loss. I mean, any person who takes on a competitive sport will feel the losses and will enjoy the wins. It's not often you'll come off a field or court or whatever, a race or whatever, and go, yeah, I got beaten, cool. So you're always going to see those emotions flying. But once the emotions settle down, if you can reflect on it and unpack it and go, you know what? Yeah, we played as well as we could. You can take that. I mean, you talk about the World Cup. Once Sam Cane got the red card, I packed my walker up and went onto the water and started paddling.
Getting a text message halfway through the first half.
We're going paddling. And then I get back home and I find out they could have just about won it if a couple of kicks had gone right. So that's a moment where once you get off that raw emotion, those 14 men that were on the field at any one time that second half, and we as a nation should be absolutely proud of the way they went about their task. That by rights, South Africa should have rolled them and smoked them. So for them to stand up, man down for 60 minutes and do what they did was awesome. And there are those moments where you can actually sit with pride and go, you know what, I gave it everything. So it's hard. It's a bit, any loss, no matter how close or far it is a bit of pill to take, because you're not in it to lose, you're in it to win. Anyone who says otherwise is a liar. Hey, Phil. But if you can take the chance later, once the emotions are calmed down, and go, how did I go, or how did we go? And we got beaten by a better team. You take that on the chin.
When did you know it was time to hang up the boots?
When my body broke.
Yeah.
I was going to play for maybe another 1 or 2 years and sort of transition out of the leadership role and just be into that sort of support role, helping the younger ones through. This is Southland now.
Yes.
I was incredibly fortunate to be asked to lead the team.
What was the move to Southland? Why did you decide to move to Southland?
Now, did I decide? That was a result of professional sport. I was in the throes of negotiating a contract with Suntory in Japan. They'd come and see me the year before, and I said, "Nah, I'm not ready to go." I'd had a major shoulder injury a couple of years earlier, and I just started getting back into I'd set a task of being back to where I was before I got the injury. So I was just starting to feel like I'd done that.
Would you be one of the first in the country to be taken over to Japan and that sort of...
Oh, no. There were guys there 15 years before me. There were a good mate of mine we played together in New Zealand varsities in the early 90s, and then he went maybe a year later. And there were guys who were going in the early 90s and that there. So
in a paid capacity?
Paid capacity, but it was more they were working in the company as well as getting paid. So the payment was, well, you're going to work.
You need to work. Yep.
Work. So they had to front up and work, which is actually a really cool thing because they got fully immersed into the Japanese way and got the language so much better than the guys nowadays who just have to turn up and do footy. And they got so many more connections in the Japanese environment, life connections, because they had to sit alongside them and earn their respect and do the mahi there as well as play the footy. No, to answer your question, no, I wasn't. But I was the first when I left Otago and went to down to Otago and Southland. That was an agreement made between Otago and Southland that one of the Highlander locks will go down there. Because we were pretty much Otago with a token Southlander, if any, back then. It was a real...
And the Highlanders squad.
Yeah, and it was mentioned many times, we'll just hold it all here. in Otago because it was not separated. They were the same group running Otago and Highlanders.
Yes.
So I think there's a couple of new people come into the space and said we need to share a bit of love down to our franchise. And one of those resultant things was I was the older lock in the group, and a decision outside my control said, look, we'll loan you Brendon. And so I went down a little bit pissed, to be fair, because it wasn't my intention. I wanted to finish off whatever I was doing with Otago. I had aspirations of getting 100 games. I'd had 2 or 3 seasons where I missed because of injury, so I was certainly around long enough to get 100 games, but the body didn't allow me to. But I was still hankering, aiming for that. So I went down, a little bit disappointed, disillusioned with sport. Well, certainly with Otago at the time. So I had to pivot and using a common term and go, a new term and go, well, I'm going to prove everyone wrong. I'm going to get down there and show them that they should have hung on to me. So, within 2 pre-season games, Leicester Rutledge came to me and said, would you lead the team? Now, that was left field for me. That was I was just coming down to play my footy. I'd already verbally agreed to a contract in Japan with Suntory. So I was going to play my season out, and then the family and I were going to move over. And then Leicester asked me to lead it, and then halfway through the season, I went to Leicester and said, look, this is the situation. I'm really enjoying the year, and thank you for this opportunity to be a leader in this environment. But I'm going to be going to Japan after this season. Very next morning, Roger Clark, who's CEO of Rugby Southland, rings me and says, geez, come and see me, please. So I walk in, he says, okay, well, what can we do to keep you? Well, okay, well, I don't think you really can, certainly not financially for what I was looking at. But my wife at the time was not fully enamoured with the idea of going and living in Tokyo with young children. So I said, well, okay, well, what about this? We look at a career after rugby because I like the environment. I think I've got a lot to offer. If you can guarantee me employment and X sort of income, and I wasn't asking. I just said, look, what can you put on the table that'll make it doable to stay here and build something post-rugby? Because I didn't want to be a player who lost rugby and then went, oh, what am I doing now? And I'm an ex-teacher, ex-phys graduate by this stage, so I had a few skills that I could offer. And I was already working for Rugby Southland as a sort of like their pre-junior academy coordinator. So I was already starting to sort of work towards those sort of things. And the upshot was that Roger went to New Zealand Rugby, and I was the first ever non-super player to be guaranteed an income, guaranteed a contract, as a recognition of sticking around and not taking the dollars overseas and going. So just as a bit of a loyalty, I suppose a loyalty contract, they called it. So that's quite a proud moment for me as well, and acknowledgement of the mahi I put into the game over that decade of time. But to answer your question, when did I know to retire? The start of 1992, just going into the NPC, I'd had a sore neck, a really sore neck, and I was starting to lose strength in my right arm, but we couldn't sort of ascertain what it was. I was still playing at the time, but I certainly wasn't comfortable, and to the point where I was wearing a neck brace under my tracksuit pants, under my jacket while I was going to the game and trying to hide it from anyone because I just couldn't sleep and my arm was sore. So I said to Rugby Southland, look, this doesn't seem to be getting well. I'm a little bit concerned I'm not sleeping. If it's just pain, I'll deal with it, but if there's something going on, I need to know. So we got an MRI sorted out. So I played a game against Blenheim. So, yeah, whatever. Marlborough, sorry. My old Alzheimer's getting old. Against Marlborough. Actually, Grizz Wiley was the coach at the time. And funny enough, got named player of the day, but flew to Christchurch the next day. And I went to the hospital, I think it was Southern Cross, and I got an MRI on my neck. And Simon Mayling's dad, who was a doctor on the inside, had seen my name come up on the list. So he came round and knocked on the window and behind where all the screens was. And as I come out of the thing, he says, come in here. So he pulled me right around and showed me straight away. And he pulled up this image of this white band going right down the middle of your screen, right? And then it almost disappears to nothing halfway down. And he says, see that? He says, that's your problem. I says, well, what's that? He says, well, see the big white band? That's your spinal cord. And see where it's pinching to almost nothing? You're that close to severing it. And so what had happened was my disc between C5 and 6 had prolapsed internally and was crushing my spinal cord. And he said, if you had had one knock the wrong way, you would have been a tetraplegic. So that was me. I was done from there.
Pretty easy.
It was an easy decision.
Easy decision.
But I had plans on playing for another couple of years after that. That was the start of 2-2.
Mate, can we push forward to, I mean, you obviously got a son and a daughter.
Two sons.
Two sons?
And a daughter.
Sorry, 2 sons and a daughter. Sorry, yeah, that's right. We Nico there. Sam being a professional athlete and now being the father of a professional athlete, how does that work for you? How do you cope? Is it hard to kind of give advice? Is it easy to give advice? Is it easy for him to take that advice?
You're asking some questions now.
Or more to the point, probably a better question is, has the relationship changed over a period of time from him becoming just a son to now an adult / competitive athlete?
I'll be honest, as he was a teenager, and you would ask Sam and he would tell me I was too quick to offer advice. And I would be probably err on the side of critical advice first. Why did you do that? Or why didn't you do this? Rather than firstly go, hey, great game. And I look back on that a little bit embarrassed, but that was my personal psyche and possibly a little bit of what I got as a son from my father was I ended up getting driven by being challenged rather than being told how good I was. I wanted to prove someone wrong. And, rightly or wrongly, I deferred to that without even knowing it. And that didn't help my relationship with Sam when he was a young teenager finding his way, to be honest with you. He thought I was just too critical, and he probably would say I'm probably still too critical. But it has also at the same time, I think, given us a relationship over and above father and son, because I've got empathy, I've got experience in the space and can offer advice if he wanted it or not. And he's come to me and asked. The cool thing about it is just watching how he's grown into his space as a professional sportsman in basketball. And the really, really cool thing is if you'd asked me what my sport was at the end of high school, it was basketball. So to have this opportunity to reconnect with a game I loved as a teenager has been so cool.
Yeah, because not many people know this, right? Just like from school age, you were probably more engrossed or by far more focused on your basketball career than rugby?
I didn't take up ball. I wasn't allowed to take up basketball properly until sixth form. I had to get school C and earn that before Dad would let me play rugby and basketball at school. I had played socially in the mighty Woodville community gym from Form 3 or Year 9 as it is now. But year 12, 13 in modern speak, or 6th and 7th form, I really embraced the game and played it a lot and was reasonably successful. My high school, Tararua College in Paiatua, small school, 400 or 500 co-ed, we made it to the semi-finals of nationals in our final year. We lost to Mount Albert Grammar, Mags, in the semis, and then got pipped by St John's Hamilton for third and fourth. But 2 of us made tournament team, myself and our shooting guard, Glenn Ashwell, who was an amazing player. So, yeah, I was offered actually a scholarship with Ubix Palmerston North, which is now the Jets, to stay and go to Massey at the end of high school. But I got into phys ed school, so I thought, I'll try this avenue instead. Who knows? But yes, to watch Sam go and be in this sport's been awesome for me as a father and a fan.
That's cool. I want to talk about briefly, we did talk about it earlier, around coming to Southland and going into the workforce after that. Did you have any challenges that you faced stepping away from the sport initially in those first couple of years?
No, I don't know. I think because I ended up being quite immersed straight, I never had a gap because I went from being a player to being the strength and conditioner and doing some video analysis and travelling with the team. So it was almost like I was still playing by default. I was still in amongst it. I think my then wife would probably challenge. I think she did say at one moment, I thought when you stop playing, we'd have you back and you get a 9-to-5 job rather than these sort of being away for, as you were, never been around on the weekends and things. So I think any player who's had some sort of exposure of, I don't know, success, I don't know is the right thing, but just being around an environment where you are pumped up and you're known. Not that I was known when I'm playing against playing with the likes of Jeff Wilson and Josh and things like that. I mean, those guys are worldwide known. I'm just Brendon Timmins in Dunedin, but it's always hard to all of a sudden, you know, a coach likened it to me once, and it wasn't. We weren't talking about this sort of scenario, but I think it fits quite nicely. He says, "Paddle of water. Your input into the game or your impact on the game is like you putting your fist in the water and shaking it around. So there's ripples, there's splashes. That's you impacting the game. You got to remember that when you take your fist out, retire or leave or whatever, very quickly that water's stilled and it's like you were never there. Now that's a really, really hard concept for people to pick up on, but that's what it is.
Yeah, especially
Things
when your fist
move.
is full on in the water.
Yeah.
Did you see that with any of the, I mean, maybe some of those guys in the Otago rugby team that you were friends with, you were close with, that carried on a wee bit longer and then, you know, made a big name for themselves? Because I can imagine, you know, nowadays, or maybe about 10 years ago, that you know, a lot of players would probably struggle with going from being this, you know, an All Black. It could be an All Black, and then that's it, done. Or they carry on for as long as they can, and just to.
Yeah, it's a really hard question to answer for someone else because you don't know what's going on in their mindset or where they're at or what they're doing. I mean, I think we could probably all name players who you consider watching and going, ooh, maybe should have stopped a couple of years ago, mate. But, you know, if they are still getting that enjoyment and that satisfaction, is it wrong? You know, if they are still getting some form of income supporting their family, which is what they feel they need to do, is that wrong? You know, that's a hard one to say. I think the hardest thing is when you say it gets pulled on you, and then all of a sudden you're nothing. You're no longer the All Black. You're no longer the Highlander. You're no longer the Otago player. And if you haven't had your systems in place to allow a transition into something, that's when I've seen players go into some spaces where they've really struggled, and they'll bounce from job to job to job to job to job. Not only fellas, but also females that are playing high-level netball in New Zealand and that, and then they're struggling to find their passion, their focus. What am I now, sort of thing. That's the tough one.
Was the support there back in your day, as it is now? I imagine now there is a lot of support. From my side around Otago cricket, I know that there is a lot of support for players that are they're on their last sort of leagues in the last years of their career. But I can imagine back in the 90s and the early 2000s that it wasn't really as much as a thing as it is today. It's
certainly developed. There was, by the end of my career, we had a professional player development or a player development manager, I should say, if I get it right. But it was still driven by the player as to what they could do or where they could do and what they wanted to do. And a lot of them were so wrapped up in the now that they weren't thinking about it. Because I'm bulletproof. I'm not going to get broken. I'm going to be playing this for years. And then all of a sudden, I've got a career ender. What do I do? It's far more structured now, but professional has been around for over 25 years now, so you'd like to think it's certainly in a place now where guys are starting to really, the moment they become professional, they should be thinking about what they're going to do once they're no longer professional, without taking their eye off the prize right now. But you need to be planning. This is a finite career. I can't play this till I'm 50. And I think that most systems are in place now.
Are you a goal setter? Were you a goal setter when you were younger?
No, it just happened. And there was no rhyme or reason. I turned up to Dunedin because I thought phys ed would be a pretty cool thing to do, because my phys ed teacher said you should go and do phys ed. I had no vision or plan. I stuck with rugby instead of basketball when I came down, because I was fortunate enough to make a New Zealand under-19 camp. So I thought, I'll follow that up. I had a phys ed mate, Matt Hemmer, who was a very good basketballer and in the Nuggets in those early 90s, who kept hitting me up going, come and trial for the Nuggets, because we'd played against each other in the late 80s. He was Nainai, I think Nainai, and Tararua, and we did a pre-season game. So he remembered me from there. And so I'd go and scrimmage with the Nuggets, but by that stage I was sort of immersed into the rugby environment and thought the game had passed me on a little bit. Have I been a goal setter? No. My mates at phys ed school, I probably owe quite a few beers to. They pulled me through many a paper. Certainly I'll mention Neil Harray and certainly Kerry Baker as two critical figures to my degree. And then becoming a teacher, I thought, I've done phys ed, I might as well be a phys ed teacher. I actually didn't make the cut for the 1 year secondary school teachers intake, because they thought I was a rugby player and I wouldn't be able to commit to it, because Aaron Penne and Jeff Wilson were two very good profile players who had to withdraw from Tikal because of their rugby careers. And then I come on going, look, I'd like to be a part of this thing. Might have something to do with my grades as well, I'm not sure. So Tony Gilbert said, why don't you do the A2S primary teaching course? Oh, yeah. So I did that. So I ended up doing 7 years at uni and should have been a doctor or something. But it just, I think there's the story, like when the student's ready, the teacher will arrive. For me, it was like when the moment's there, the opportunity will be there. And I'm a big believer in that. I mean, I got suggested to read a book called The Alchemist. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that book. It's a fable by a Brazilian writer, Paulo Coelho, and it's about young Santiago as a wee shepherd in the bottom end of Spain, but he has this dream of being somewhere near pyramids, so he goes, and he thinks that's where his life should follow, so he gets on a ship, gets over to Africa, and then does this journey across to where he thinks his vision is all about. But when he gets there, he actually finds out. The story goes that he gets dragged here and dragged here, but it was all about be open to these opportunities. You set your sights out there somewhere, but be open to the opportunity that might take you here, because that might actually get you there quicker, sort of thing. And that's something that I've sort of used as a philosophy: is don't set hard and steady goals. I know my wife currently is going, what are we doing in 5 or 10 years? Don't know, that drives her insane.
Just see which way the wind's blowing today. That's quite interesting that you say that, because Connor and I have, this is only our second podcast. We did a test run, and we've also done a few videos of athletes who are using the gym. And often when Connor asks that question, there's no hard and fast rule. It's like, yes, I definitely goal set. It's like, yes, I goal set, but I'm pretty flexible with moving this way or that way.
Yeah.
This is interesting. The longer we do this, the more there's. So this is a podcast about mindset and athlete's mindset, and the ability to kind of move or shift is really, really interesting. That often comes out in that question when you're, are you goal focused? Is there a goal? Yes, there's a goal, but happy to slide this way or this way. in that journey to sort of achieve that goal, or the goal could sort of shift, and being open to shift with that goal is a real interesting thing, that's come out.
Yeah, I think you got to have your big rocks that you won't compromise on, and they're the things that'll drive you forward. Like, throughout my career, I always felt like they were trying to find a better version of Lock than me, and I always played under that pressure, and internally that pressure to be someone who can hold their place in the team, because I never felt like I secured it. I'm a short Lock, but I was either going to be fitter than them, stronger than them, or if I had to be nastier than them to make sure that I held my role. And that was some of those big rocks that I pushed myself hard. So
it's also interesting listening to you speak, and that it took 7 years to get a degree, or through that process.
2 degrees at that stage.
2 degrees. That evens out then. Sort of 4 years one, 3 for the other. But so I don't know what you think your attributes are, but like as an athlete, I think resilience is something that's sort of missing for a lot of people. And then you get to a certain level of athlete, and the one thing that's normally a common sort of thread through that is the resilience. It's to be able to accept the things that you're not so great at and make them strengths, but also not to kind of ignore them, if that makes sense, and go, oh, you know what, no, it's not going to be, so I won't even try. It's like, oh, no, it's not me, but I'm going to try something. And there's a resilience. What do you think your biggest attributes are as an athlete, or when you, like as an athlete?
Well, resilience certainly resonates with me, because I had potentially 2 or 3 career-ending injuries through my career that I had to build myself back up for, and prove to me and others that I could get back to where I was. I broke my leg 2 days out from playing the Springboks. I was named to play starting Lock against the Springboks in 1995 or whatever it was, 94. And that devastated me. I was out of rugby for a whole 12 months. And no one thought, shit, that's a major. You're going to get back to it. And, I got myself back into the environment then, after that. And the year before, I missed the Lions game because I'd broken my collarbone during a Super 10 game. Just these constant sort of messages saying, oh, mate, you're missing out on this, you're missing out on that. It was tough. Yeah. But as I said, the thing that drove me was, tell me I'm not going to be there, and I'll make sure I'm there. So I was going to be fitter. I was going to be stronger. I worked hard. I think back to my study. I took my last year of phys ed school part-time over 2 years to give myself the space to do that as well. So potentially compromised my study result. I always passed, but my result could have been a whole of a lot better. But my energy was driving into making sure I could be the athlete that I am. And I think that's possibly something that I see in Sam a little bit. As my son is, he went into a recent Tall Blacks campaign, having had a lot of sort of ups and downs with body and off-court stuff, and he probably wasn't going. He was in the 22, but wasn't really in the picture to go past that. But he just went in and went hard and proved everyone wrong, to the point where the coaches had to take him away in the 14. And that was such a cool thing to see. I know how much energy that took out of him to get there. Then he tweaks his calf on tour, and they make a strategic move to go into a guard-heavy roster, so he gets dropped off out of the final 12 to the World Cup. Devastating, but then he tells me, I'm really looking forward to going into Sydney and capturing a pre-season. History will say he blew his calf out in the first ever team training 2 days after joining the team. But there's I think my big rock is resilience. I've had to. I left home and hardly ever went back when I came to Dunedin. I'm from the North Island, so you got to do a lot on your own. That's a strength, but can be a weakness, because you tend to get, as my wife will say, very tunnel vision and forget about everyone else around. So I am trying to open myself up.
Just quickly, what was that conversation like with Sam? Not making that final 14, and obviously put in a lot of that hard work, and for him to miss out. What was that conversation like?
Oh, I was devastated for him, and he was obviously initially very devastated. But once, and what I was so proud of was the way he had flipped that into such a loss. Because it hurt him. He said, it took me a day of feeling sorry for myself. But then he looked up and went, you know what? I can now leave and go into the Sydney environment 3 weeks or 2 weeks ahead of where I would be, and really immerse myself into that space, because I don't know anyone there. I can go in at the start and put my feet in my feet in the court and really show them what I'm about. And I thought that was such a encouraging, mature mindset to be in, that I think sort of set him up into good stead. And he's just now starting to get onto the roster after 6 weeks of hard yards, rehabilitation, and that. So, yeah. It was a really proud parent moment to hear that from him.
Yeah, that's that whole resilience. You've got one way of thinking of it, about it, or dealing with it, and then another way. One's not so good, one's negative, one's positive. Yeah. And that's often what I again, for us doing this, the more often that we do it, the more often there's everybody has failures. Everybody has things that just don't. Nobody has the perfect plan that works out all of the time. It's what happens when shit hits the fan and things go wrong. You can either just give it away and go, "Oh, that's me done," or okay, I've got to figure out a way to get around this, or find the positives in it. And that's again a big driver for athletes. And the mindset is that resilience is like, I'm going to find a way around that.
Yep.
Which is really interesting.
Still sucks to be told that you're not good enough or you're not wanted.
Yep.
That hurts. But it's how quickly you can acknowledge that hurt, park it, and learn from it and go, okay, well, what have I got to do to make sure that doesn't happen again? Or what can I get out of this that's going to move me forward?
Can we talk about the future, or like the present and like into the future? So, and from having like a really competitive background, I already know, but how do you keep the competitive juices flowing now with a body that's potentially broken down? I know we've had a couple of brand new knees, but still having that whole will to want to compete, be in team environments and that sort of stuff. Yeah, what fills your cup now?
Waka ama. Mate, I'm loving this. I retired in 32 through injury, as I said, and through the 30s and into my 40s, I was always around sort of high performance sport in one form or another. So I kept myself in okay nick, but I wasn't driving toward anything. And I need something, not necessarily a goal, but I need something to get up and really have a crack at. And Waka Ama provided that for me. I'll be forever indebted to a guy called Paul Arnie. We never played rugby with each other, but we played against each other. He was an old grizzly prop out of Pirates, and we had connected over the years. And he said, "Come and have a go at this Waka." He's been paddling 10 odd years, and he said, "Come and have a go at this Waka. I know you got sore knees. This will be great. You just sit down and flap your arms around." And okay. And I offended him for a couple of years, going, no. And then I said, right, I'm in. And I had one paddle, went, oh, this is me. I think we went for about an hour. And I think they hated it because I was jumping around and moving, and all the old heads in the boat and the Waka. And I got a bit of a telling off from Otoko Vakatini, who was the steerer. He says, sit still. Because I didn't appreciate just how much getting out of sync affects the Waka. Yeah. But there were 2 Waka in the water, and we ended up having a bit of a race, and I could see the energy going into it from both Wakas not wanting to lose. And then I'm going, hey, I'm not losing this. So it fills the physical cup, and it doesn't beat me up. It fills that competitive juice of lining up and trying to beat someone or something. But it's also that whānau environment of a group of like-minded people in the same space, caring and supporting each other. And I've missed that since rugby. I'm deep diving into Waka, and it's awesome.
Are you that good at it, Phil?
Am I good at it?
Yeah, you're good.
Don't know if good at it. Probably for the same reasons. It's when you have something that's missing and you've been involved in team sport, and then for whatever reason, age, like just the opportunity, all of a sudden you're put into a space where the same feelings that you get when you're playing sport in rugby, or rugby, cricket, team sport, is like, man, you're getting that in a waka as well, is pretty awesome. Like, I'm a really competitive person. Cheese is a really competitive person. And you can have a bit of a grump if you lose when it comes to sport. Like, I'm a terrible loser.
I've seen you on the golf course, Phil.
Golf, yeah, things can go flying. But the mentality is very different when you're in a waka. So you can finish a race, you can finish second, third, fourth, fifth, but get out and, man, the whānautanga, or the whanaungatanga that's around it, is everybody high fives, everybody's respectful of each other, and even though you lost, it's like, man, that was awesome. It becomes about something else other than the race as well. It's like, man, how cool is it to be out there? How cool is it to be racing? That's what's interesting.
Yeah. So like Phil and I, we're in the same team. So he sits in front of me.
So you're dragging him. You're dragging him along.
Well, theoretically, he's dragging me because he's in front of me. But the cool thing is we have to be in sync. For the waka to move, we have to be on sync with each other. And our biggest paddle's been 30K. So you're talking nearly 3 hours of paddling. But we had a race in Paihia last October, and that was long distance nationals, so 26K or 24K, 3 laps of 8K, and we're lining up, and there are 66 person walkers, whole shotty for one spot, and you're sitting there, and you are, it is awesome, and then go, and you just lock in, and it was such a cool experience. And you're seeing world champions opposite you, T King, Tupu King, and these guys who are legends of the sport sitting alongside you, and you just go, wow, this is awesome. And the cool thing about our sport, we can do it until we fall over. Yeah, there's no age limit here. We've got 2 guys in their 70s who are probably 2 of the most competitive guys in our club. And they still throw their toys when they get beaten by us young fellas. And we have to work to beat them. Yeah. It's not a given. So it's a cool sport.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I've got one more challenge for you. We do a quick fire to end the podcast. So we've got about 45 questions here. We're going to see how fast you can do it, or how many questions you can get through in 60 seconds.
This is based off, like, every guest does it. So... and what was Dion's score?
Yeah, Dion got to, I think he got to about 24, 24, 25. So
that's our Otago Volts coach.
Head coach. So hopefully...
you got 60 seconds to get through as many of these questions, and 24 is the score to beat.
You got to get them right to move on, is that right?
It's just more of a get to know you a little bit more, quick fire. So
Righto.
It's either this or that.
Never let the truth into the good story, right?
Correct. No pressure, but 24 is the score to beat. Don't let me down.
And it also relies on me also to try and get these words out. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Morning or night?
Morning.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Introvert or extrovert?
Bit of both.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Early riser or night owl?
Early riser.
Yoga or gym?
Gym.
Fiction or non-fiction?
Non-fiction.
Podcasts or books?
Books.
Meditation or journaling?
Meditation.
Mindset or skill set?
Skill set.
Planet or spontaneous?
Spontaneous.
Gratitude or affirmations?
Probably affirmations.
Homebody or adventurer?
Homebody.
Routine or spontaneity?
Bit of both.
Goals or systems?
Systems.
Optimist or realist?
Realist.
Growth or comfort?
Comfort, probably.
Music or silence?
Music.
Travel or staycation?
Travel.
Self-help or fiction?
Self-help.
Minimalist or maximalist?
Probably maximalist.
Dog or cat?
Dog.
Hiking or biking?
Biking.
Learn or earn?
Learn.
Tech or nature?
Nature.
Stop.
25. Ooh. I think he gets that by 1, I'm pretty sure. We'll put it down that you got the win there. Brendon Timmins, bloody good to have you on the show. It's been awesome to hear your journey, your professional journey. obviously your mindset, your resilience. Also hearing about your son as well, and you dragging Phil along for Wakaama. So no, it's been good to hear, mate.
No, it's been a pleasure, and thanks for popping the cherry on podcasting. I've really enjoyed it.
You're gonna have to jump on another one now. All right, thanks, mate.